that there. Pop, pop. All right. Now, oh fuck, that's not what I want. We need to go here. Need to set up a new deck. We need Zimone and Dina, and it is the 9th of January 2025. That is not the right keyboard. Zimone and Dina. Jan 2025. Okay, put that over here. There is Simone and Dina. Simone and Dina. Bam. Create. And then we need to update our TikTok. Bam. Need to update this too. Okay. Window capture. Dina. Okay. Now we're going to pop that, make it small. Put it over here. Let's do a heuristic study. Bam, pop that card. Make it big. Put window capture back here. Back one more. There it is. Okay, there's our suggestion. And let's move it up a little bit, make it a smidge bit bigger. There we go. There's our $60 heuristic study. Fantastic. And now we're going to go open Microsoft Edge. Okay. Oh my god, now we got to open Discord. Nope, we got to go to Twitch. Twitch. Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good day over on TikTok. We are still setting up the stream. It'll be just a moment. The mic's not even connected. God damn it. What about you though? Are you connected? Well, I can live on the floor for now. Alright. Pop you over here. Bam bam. There. Open Microsoft Edge. Move Edge over here. Make this... Actually, we can have Edge right here because that's fine. All right. Go to YouTube. Hopefully it's going to show us live on YouTube. It is showing us live on YouTube on software, but is it showing us live on YouTube on YouTube? I don't care. So later, YouTube. It's still not showing me live on YouTube for some reason. Whatever. We'll live. Fuck. Live. Is there a way I can share this out? Share link to... Copy the link, and then we're going to post it in Discord, and then we should be good to go. Alright. Copy the link, and then we're going to post it in Discord, and then we should be good to go. Alright. Twitch. Fuck, Discord. So many apps. Alright, okay. Fuck, Discord. So many apps. Alright. Pop, pop. Paste. Send. Cool. Now we're going to go to General. Paste. Send. Cool. Now we're going to go to... Bam. Then we're going to go into Rip's Discord, and we're going to go to promote ourselves. We're going to copy. Paste. Pop. Alright, we did it. We are ready to do live deck building, and we don't have any cards to talk about. We got to pull out some cards. Alright, that's not the right colors. Let's grab some cards. Alright, open that up. Bam. All right, no one is in the Twitch chat. Hello, everybody. I am Bigger Gayer Magic. Tonight, we're doing some live deck building. If you would like to join me on Twitch, we're building Zimone and Dina. It is a Sultai 3-mana human druid. It's a 3/4. It's got 2 abilities. The first one is a triggered ability that says whenever you draw your second card each turn, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And you can tap, sacrifice another creature, you draw a card, and you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. And if you control 8 or more lands, you get to repeat the process. So you can just crap out a bunch of lands from your hands onto the field with Zimone and Dina. Alright. God, computer. You can do it, computer. I believe in you. We can show TikTok our commander, I bet. Somehow. We'll figure it out. Maybe. Maybe we'll figure it out. Okay. Pop, pop. Head on over here. Still on Discord. Okay. Hello! If you have any suggestions for our Zimone and Dina deck, please put it in the chat, y'all. Why is my chat not popping up? Everything was so much easier when we were just doing TikTok. Damn. Okay. Alright. Well, come on, phone. You can do it. Open. Oh my gosh. Twitch. Here we go. Alright, open my chat. Please show me my chat. My channel. Okay. Show me the chat. Alright, Fun Fungi! Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for struggling with me as I figure out how to get to see your chat messages. I still haven't figured out YouTube. I hope nobody's watching me on YouTube because I cannot see you. Or your chat messages. So, Fun Fungi, if you have any suggestions, please put them in the chat. I'm going to go pull out some suggestions so that we have something to talk about. Alright. You're fun. You're fun, too. This is going great. Okay. Bam. So, alright, open up Scryfall. Not Scryfall. Trying to do so many things at once. I was so busy today. Alright. Swarm Intelligence is pretty cool. Let's talk about Swarm Intelligence, if we can. Swarm Intelligence. Swarm Intelligence. Swarm Intelligence. Swarm Intelligence, this thing is from Hours of Devastation. It is a 7-mana mono blue enchantment, and it says that whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, we get to copy it. So we're getting double the values from our instants and sorceries. We could lean into a Spellslinger build with our commanders. Also, I don't know. I find this one fun. You can lean into Spellslinger builds, and you'll get double the value out for all your spells if you synergize them with this thing. It's a good time. Alright, there we go. Music's back up. Microphone's on. TikTok's watching. Hello, TikTok. If y'all want to join me over on Twitch, you can see my new fancy green screen effects, and I'll be able to see your chats better. Unfortunately, because of the ban, we have moved the show on over to Twitch. Curse of Verbosity. Thank you so much, Fun Fungi. Let's talk about Curse of Verbosity. Curse of Verbosity. This thing's an aura curse. And this one says, whenever enchanted player is attacked, you draw a card. Each opponent attacking that player does the same. This is a great way to spread some card draw around the table. It's a great way to motivate your opponents to attack your other opponents. It's a good time. I really like this one. It's fun because it forces people to interact with each other, and we get payoffs when they do. Alright, let's see if we can pull up our commander for TikTok. Zimone. And Dina. My old computer is struggling just to run TikTok Studio. Alright, come on, little browser. You can do it. There they are. Okay, bam. That's Curse of Verbosity. It's cool. It motivates our opponents to attack each other and attack people that are not us. I vibe. Let's see what else we got. We got Alright, Spell Twine. This one's old. This one's cheap. This thing's probably like 10 cents. It's called Spell Twine. And it kind of tapes together some instants of sorceries and graveyards. It says exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. Copy those cards and cast the copies without paying for their mana. Exile Spell Twine. It's very fun. If your friends are running Cultivate-like effects, this thing's really silly because it'll just staple a Cultivate to whatever spell you're already casting. It's a good time. Oh, jeez. Hide that fault. Okay, cool. Yeah. That is Spell Twine. Scrolling Crawler! Thank you! I appreciate you so much for making the transition over to TikTok, Matten. And thank you, Matten167 from TikTok, for head on over to Twitch. Your suggestion is a Scrawling Crawler. Scrawling Crawler is a rad little card from Foundations. It's a 3-drop colorless Phyrexian artifact creature, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. That's our opponents. We're helping our opponents draw cards. But this is fair and balanced, and even good for us, because this thing's second triggered ability says, whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. So we're going to help our opponents draw cards, because this here Scrolling Crawler is going to murder them when they draw those cards. It's great. It's 3 mana. You can pop it in any deck. It's going to help you draw additional cards, and it's going to help your opponents die. It's a cool time. It's a fun vibe. It's about $6 right now, and it's only getting more expensive. Honestly, I threw it in a deck because I didn't know where else to put it, and it's just good. It's good all by itself, and it hurts your opponents. It does work. It's a good time. Cons, it helps your opponents draw cards, which they could use to murder you. But, pros, you draw cards, and pros, they die when they draw cards. Very fun. I quite like this one. Thank you for the suggestion, Matten. I appreciate it. Roxel, thank you so much for joining me again on Twitch, Roxel. I appreciate it. Oh, you love blue-green decks? Are you a Simic person? Are you one of those gooey Simic players? Alright. So Matten's next suggestion is a Necro Duality. So we're gonna pull up our Necro Duality. Necro Duality is a... it's a 4-mana mono-blue enchantment. Whenever another non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So if we're in Zombie Tribal, oh damn, this thing's coconuts. This thing is $20, and it says whenever another non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, you make a copy of it. This thing is amazing in a Zombie Tribal deck. We should do a Zombie Tribal deck one of these days. If you want to suggest any commanders for us to talk about on live, please join my Bigger Gayer Discord. It's in the link tree if you're on TikTok. And if you're on Twitch or YouTube, the link tree is somewhere, probably on TikTok. Thank you for joining me in these other locations. We have moved the show from TikTok to Twitch because of the upcoming TikTok ban. And this little Necro Duality is a very sick card for a Zombie Tribal deck. Got an island? Mirror Room. Yeah, Mirror Room and Fractured Realm. Ever since they got printed in Duskmourn, people love this card. Mirror Room, Fractured Realm. It's a room enchantment, so it's got 2 sides. Mirror Room. I can tell you miss me. I can tell that this. This thing's rad. It's $3, and it's great in almost every deck, especially if your deck has triggered abilities like Zimone and Dina here, who our TikTok viewers still can't see. I'm sorry, TikTok. I was late setting up the stream last night, and yeah, so we're still trying to load your commander. My old computer that's running TikTok Studio, that's why it's all glitchy on TikTok and shitty quality. It's because I'm using my older computer. The newer computer is running the green screen effects over on Twitch for the new, if you want to join us over there. This thing's rad. The 3 mana side says whenever you unlock this door, you create a token that's a copy of a target creature you control, and it's a reflection in addition to its other creature types. And this other one, the 7 mana side, just says you get double the triggered abilities of permanents you control. It's sick. The only thing I don't love about it is that when you open a room card on Moxfield, it makes the text small, and I have to squint to read it. But other than that, it's all upside, and I highly recommend it. It's $3 right now. And if you can get up to 7 mana, you double all your triggers, that's going to do a lot of work for you. Oh god, the music is dying. Oh, please charge. Technology is struggling. I am struggling with technology today. Alright, let's put the music... Alright. Yeah, so that's Mirrored Room, Fractured Realm. It's $3. It's great. If everyone is really nice in the DC too... Mirror Room, Fractured Room is really nice in the DC. I hope everyone's really nice in the DC too. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Roxel, but I'm glad you're having good vibes. Fun Fungi says Mikokoro. Please be spelled correctly. Please be spelled. The center of the sea. Kikokoro, Center of the Sea, is the legendary colorless land. It taps for colorless, it enters untapped, and you can pay 2, and each player draws a card. It's a group hug card. It's great, because it really triggers Zimone and Dina. Whenever you draw your second card, each turn, Zimone and Dina triggers. We gain 2 life, and each opponent loses 2 life, so we're going to deal a little bit of damage. This thing is a group hug card, and you pay 2 life, you tap it, and everybody draws a card. We're somebody, that's going to trigger our commander. Very cool synergy. I appreciate it, Fun Fungi. Very cool synergy. Also, this thing is $5. We vibe. We vibe hard. Dingo TV, thank you so much for coming on over to Twitch. Curiosity. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys straight up, I'm not a big fan of Curiosity. Curiosity is a 1 mana mono blue enchantment, and it says that whenever the enchanted creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. So there's a creature, you probably heard of it. You might have died to it if it got equipped with Curiosity. Or excuse me, if Curiosity got attached to it. It's called Niv Mizzet. It says whenever... what does it say? Whenever you draw a card, you deal 1 damage. So it loops infinitely with Curiosity, and it deals infinite damage, you draw your deck, and you win. And so I hate Curiosity for that reason, because I am so used to just being kind of comboed out with it with Niv Mizzet. So it makes me sad. But other than that, it's perfectly viable and also fair feeling in our Zimone and Dina deck, because whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you draw that card. Great. We could play that like a normal person and not go infinite about it. Voidless Void! So good to see you on Twitch. I saw you on TikTok, Moodor. How about Psychosis? Voidless Voids. Are you Void? Are you my good friend Void on TikTok? I hope you're Void. Void, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna assume you're Void, because you're Voidless Void on Twitch. Void, long-time friend of live deck building, says a Psychosis Crawler. Psychosis Crawler. Yes, it is Void! It is so good to see you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on Twitch. Let's talk about Psychosis Crawler. It's very good to see you, my friend. Psychosis Crawler is a rad little colorless Phyrexian artifact horror creature token. Horror creature, not a token. It's got star power toughness, where star is the amount of cards in our hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. This is great, because Zimone and Dina's whole thing is we want to do this here trigger. Whenever we draw our second card, we do a little damage to our opponents, we gain a little bit of life. This thing says when we draw cards, our opponents take some damage. And because we want to be drawing cards, and we want to be dealing damage, these things deal damage in the same way, and they reward the same behavior of drawing cards. So these are very synergistic together. Psychosis Crawler itself is only 80 cents. It's a good time. Highly recommend. Thank you, Void. Void, you always do have the fire recommendations. I appreciate you. Dingo TV says, I'm gonna have to offload my TikTok coins before the ban. Dingo, thank you so much for the rose, Dingo. I appreciate it. Jake Tooney says, best commander for Heir Apparent deck. I feel like Ancient Silver Dragon, and it is lethal. So, TikTok suggests... Scarada Gaming says, Ancient Silver Dragon. Ancient Silver Dragon. I am so sorry. Ramos is in our commander tonight. It's in fact Zimone and Dina. Ramos was our commander last night, and I forgot to switch it. And my computer's having a hard time loading the new commander. But if you want to talk about your love for Ramos, I spent nearly an hour talking about my love for Ramos last night. If you want to see any of the cards that people suggested for Ramos, y'all can check that out on the Moxfield page. If you want to suggest commanders to talk about on live, y'all can join the Discord. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. And if you have a commander, or excuse me, if you have a suggestion for our Zimone and Dina, or I guess if you're on TikTok, still Ramos, please put it in the chat. We might talk about it. And if we talk about it, it'll get put into a Moxfield deck list, and y'all can see all the viewer suggestions. This is Ancient Silver Dragon. This thing is $36. It's a flying 8-drop 8/8 flyer, and it's an Elder Dragon, and whenever it connects, dealing combat damage to a player, we roll a d20 and we draw that many cards. That's all. It's just got a very sick combat damage trigger. It does lots of work. It draws silly amounts of cards. And it also gives you no max hand size for the rest of the game, just on a trigger, and it can't be taken away from you like on other effects. Very fun. It is $35, putting it well within proxy territory for me. Alright. The real high guys, thank you so much for coming out and supporting me on Twitch. I really appreciate it. I'm still really nervous because I still have like less than 100 followers on Twitch as opposed to like my TikTok following, and I appreciate you guys so much for coming in and hanging out with me on Twitch. So the real high says Shouldered the Apocalypse. Shouldered the Apocalypse would be amazing. So Shouldered, we could this could be a Nekosar like build if we wanted it to be. Nekusar is like a Grixis commander that cares about helping our opponents draw cards because it deals damage to them when they draw cards. This is Shoulder the Apocalypse. It is a death-touching 4/5 for 4 mana. And it says whenever we draw a card, we gain 2 life, and whenever our opponents draw a card, they lose 2 life. It's great. It works especially well in Zimone and Dina. This card is $100. Well, nope, this one's $90. If you want the Phyrexian version, it's $90. If you want the English version, it's $100. Excuse me. Can't be... Rona, Herald of Invasion. Is this the... I hope this is my favorite Rona. I have a Rona commander deck. It's the one that cares about legend... Yes! Not... I can't say that word on YouTube. Yonic Rona. I say Yonic because of her Phyrexian portals. This card's amazing. I have a Rona deck, and I run it as a Reanimator deck, because Rona says, tap, draw a card, discard a card, and my favorite thing about the looting effect, that's the name for the effect of draw a card and discard a card, it's called looting. So when you loot something, right, you got your hand, right, you pick up your one card, you got your new card, and you're like, okay, you're in a graveyard strategy, probably. So you're like, okay, I'm going to put the spiciest possible boy into the graveyard so that I can manipulate it. And that's what I love doing with my Rona deck. My Rona deck is a Reanimator deck. Rona is very synergistic in Zimone and Dina because Rona can draw us that second card to get us our Zimone and Dina trigger. And also, Rona can flip into an Obliterator-like creature. Her other side is a 5/5 Trampler that says when something deals damage to Rona, the Tolarian Obliterator, that source's controller exiles a card from their hand at random. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield under your control. Otherwise, you can cast it without paying for it. It's a great time. So oftentimes in Reanimator decks, if someone exiles your graveyard, your game is over. But not in my Rona deck, because Rona can just flip into a threat herself. A 5/5 with Trample that no one wants to deal damage to because we might get to cast something from their hand for free. is still a pretty good and viable creature in Commander. Especially if you can slap a piece of equipment on it. I really love my Rona deck. I think it's really silly that there's like a Yonic Abyss on it. It's great. You can't tell me that's not what a hoo-ha looks like. Dingo, thank you so much. Dingo, thank you for the roses. Thank you for the pinch face. I appreciate all the gifts on TikTok. Probably some of the last we're ever gonna get because of the TikTok ban. TikTok viewers, if you want to make the exodus on over to Twitch, you can see me in my fun little green screen effects. The reason the TikTok stream is so shitty is because I'm using an older PC. We're using the regular PC to do the Twitch overlay, where you can see me point at individual words on cards. Our next Twitch suggestion from The Real Hi is a Royal Assassin. Royal Assassin is a 3-mana mono black creature, and it's got a cool little activated ability where we can tap it, we can destroy target tapped creature. It's fair, it's balanced, it has to be a tapped creature, so it's typically something that already hurt somebody or already produced value for the player, making it feel more fair for me in a game of Commander. It's cool, it just got a reprint. This is the Assassin's Creed version. It's a 1/1 on the body, but that's not really why you run a Royal Assassin. You want to be able to destroy some tapped creatures. Vigilance suddenly becomes a very meaningful keyword with the Royal Assassin on the battlefield. Bound, and it's a hybrid card or a fuse card. Bound and determined. Bound, determined. You know, you were gonna be Matten. You're gonna be so rad if I can just type in those slashes and determined comes up. Oh my god, this is for you, Matten. Matten, I appreciate your spelling efforts. I appreciate you putting those slashes in. You helped me learn something today. Here is Bound and Determined. You can't fuse these cards. You have to pick which one you're casting. So the Bound side is a Golgari 5-drop instant, and it says sacrifice a creature, return up to X target cards from your graveyard to your hand, where X is the number of colors that creature was, then remove that card from the game. Okay, cool. So the Bound part means that we do get a death trigger on the thing we're exiling, and we do get to put some stuff in our graveyard into our hand. So if we're doing that Rona thing where we're looting and we're selectively slapping stuff into our graveyard, this could be an exciting little instant for us. Or, the other side, it's 2 mana, it's a Simic instant, and it says, other spells you control can't be countered by spells or abilities this turn, draw a card. Okay, cool. So, it seems kinda, it's a little bit all over the place for me. So it wants us to sacrifice things, right? And Simone and Dino want us to sacrifice stuff too, because they have that second activated ability where we sacrifice stuff and we draw cards and shat lands onto the battlefield. But this thing wants us to sacrifice something. The thing we sacrifice with it, though, gets exiled. This is just a cool little piece of tech. If you're in a counter-heavy play group, I can see this part being super-duper playable. Vacation. Void says the Well of Lost Dreams. The Well of Lost Dreams is in fact a vibe. And it synergizes with Simone and Dina. Because Simone and Dina say whenever you draw your second each card each turn, some opponents lose 2 life, we gain 2 life. The Well of Lost Dreams says whenever we gain life, we can pay mana of X of almost that amount of life we gained. And then we draw that many cards. It's a good time, y'all. It's a great piece of card draw in a life gain deck. Especially if you're gaining big chunks of life, you can just pick up big pieces of your deck with this thing. It can do a lot of work. Would recommend. I do love this card. I run it in my big life-linking boys deck, and it draws me chunks of the deck. It's great. Sloppity Bile Piper. Kept Evergreen, good to see you. Okay, so that's Sloppity Bile Piper. So this is a Warhammer card, and I think this thing's pretty oppressive, if I do remember right. It's 4 mana, it's a demon, it's a 3/3, and it says pay 2, sacrifice a creature. The next creature spell you cast this turn has Cascade. That's fair and balanced. That feels fair to me. Simone and Dina want us to sacrifice creatures already. We can sacrifice even more creatures with this thing. It's a vibe. There's another Warhammer card in the demon deck that like says you can't gain life, and that one's really oppressive. That's what I was kind of expecting from you, Kept Evergreen, knowing your history of suggestions. You like some really hardcore cards. Sizon, Perverter of Truth. Sizon, Perverter of Truth. Sizon, Perverter of Truth. Let's just try the Perverter of Truth. Perverter of Truth. Perverter of Truth is a 5-mana legendary demon spirit. This thing's from Kamigawa, but I got a reprint in March in the Machines. And it says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. 10 out of 10. We could just run like a Sultai Nekusar build in our Simone and Dina deck, because we want to draw that second card, and we have a bunch of stuff that triggers second card draw for us on our opponent's turn. But a lot of the things that do that kind of thing also help our opponents draw cards. So if we can get more stuff to help our punish our opponents when they draw cards, Nekusar-like effects, like we saw that Scrawling Caller a bit earlier, that's perfectly good in here, and that way we could punish them when we help them draw cards. Oh, Aladdin's Lamp. Aladdin's Lamp. Aladdin's Lamp. Aladdin's Lamp. Aladdin's Lamp. Okay, Aladdin's Lamp is not coming up. A-L-A-D-D-I-N. Aladdin. Okay, never mind. Here's Aladdin's Lamp. It's 50 cents. It's colorless. It's an artifact. It's 10 mana. X, instead of drawing a card from the top of your library, draw X cards, but choose only one to put into your hand, shuffle the leftover cards, and put them on the bottom of your library. X cannot be 0. This thing seriously costs 10 mana? Why does this cost 10 mana? Instead of drawing a card from your top of your library, draw X cards, but choose only one of them to keep. Weird. Weird. Okay, so maybe we could, theoretically, the way we would want this to work in Simone and Dina is we pay at least 2 mana and we draw 2 cards initially, and then, because it does say draw the cards, we're putting them back, but it says draw them, so it will trigger Simone and Dina. Interesting. It's interesting. I don't know if I'd play it, but it's certainly interesting. Overburden. Overburden. Hello, everybody. I am Bigger Gayer Magic. I make short-form, silly Magic the Gathering videos with green screen effects. And on live deck building, we do live deck building. We're building Simone and Dina tonight, or Ramos if you're on TikTok. Because I still can't get my computer to load. And that's why the quality's bad on TikTok. If you guys want to see any of the cards that we talked about tonight, please check out my Moxfield page. And if you want to suggest commanders, head to my Discord server. Yeah. This thing is Overburden. It's 2 mana. It's a mono blue enchantment, and it's $8. It says whenever a player puts a creature card into play, that player returns a land he or she controls to its owner's hand. I hate it. I hate it a lot. I hate it a lot, actually. But it makes a lot of sense in Simone and Dina, because Simone and Dina says it's got an activated ability where we tap, sacrifice another creature, draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you control 8 or more lands, you repeat this process. This thing could be cool, because we want to have creatures to sacrifice to Simone and Dina. And this thing, and when we do it, and when we hit 8 lands, we can just keep crapping out lands from our hand onto the battlefield. So it's not going to punish us that much, because Simone and Dina lets us crap out lands from our hand. So it's super duper mean. It's definitely yikesy for our opponents, but it makes sense for us. I don't know. I don't know if I'd play it against people I call friends. The thing that's kind of like extra yikesy about it, though, is that it's such a slow CMC that this could just come out on turn 2 and just manipulate an entire game and kind of make it really unfun, in my opinion. But if your vibe is ruining other people's times, highly recommend this here Overburden. Yes, Matt, thank you. Matt, I can't get the YouTube chat to show up at all on my stream. Everyone say hi and thank you to Matt. Matt is one of my Discord moderators. I appreciate you very much, Matt. Thank you for being here. And thank you for all the unpaid labor you put into the server. Really appreciate you. Did you do Homunculus Horde? No, we didn't do Homunculus Horde. Let's talk about Homunculus Horde. Homunculus Horde, I think, came out in Foundations, right? Homunculus Horde. Homunculus Horde. Uh-oh, can I not spell homunculus? H-O-M-U-N-C-U-L-U-S. Homunculus. Homunculus Horde. Oh, jeez. Homunculus Horde. Okay, yeah, this thing came out in Foundations. It is 70 cents. It's 4 mana, and whenever you draw your second card each turn, you create a token that's a copy of this creature. This thing's amazing in a Simone and Dina deck. Let's talk about it. This thing makes copies of itself, which is great. It also makes copies specifically on the trigger of drawing your second card. Drawing our second card each turn is all we want to do with Simone and Dina, because Simone and Dina has that trigger that hurts our opponents when we draw our second card. It drains them for 2, and we gain a little bit of life in the form of 2 life. We can also sacrifice stuff with Simone and Dina to slap lands onto the battlefield tapped, and also draw cards, which is great. When we draw cards, our second card each turn, we get this thing to trigger, and that's something else that we can sacrifice with Simone and Dina later for value and to slam more lands from our hand onto the battlefield. Very cool suggestion. Thank you, Matt. Matt, you're a gem. Thank you. I'm talking about the Discord moderator, Matt. But Matten, you are also a gem. I appreciate you too. Frozen Aether. Frozen Aether. Frozen Aether is a 4 mana mono blue enchantment. It's $2, and it says that artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control come into play tapped. You know, kept evergreen. I was getting really nervous. I don't know if you could tell as I was reading that, because I get nervous when you suggest something, and I'm like, oh no, artifacts, creatures, lands, they're gone. No one can play them, and I'm like, they just enter tapped. Honestly, that feels pretty tame for you, kept evergreen. I was expecting like, I don't know, that. Honestly, kept evergreen. Good job not making me cry with this one. I'm sure you have something else later. But this feels fair and balanced. As far as stacks pieces go, I don't hate this thing. It feels very fair. It doesn't affect our stuff, so I guess that's the good part about it. It's asymmetric, only works on our opponents. But it's cool. It's a vibe. I vibe. I don't hate it. It doesn't make me want to not play anymore. You have successfully kept me on my toes. Hackosaurus, thank you for coming over from TikTok. I've seen your stream a lot, but haven't joined in until now. I started making my own proxy Lathril deck. That's very cool. We built Lathril on live a few days ago. Hackosaurus, thank you so much for making the jump from TikTok to Twitch. I really appreciate it. If you're still joining me on TikTok, please make the jump over to Twitch, and you can see my rad green screen effects. That's why the quality is crappy on TikTok. I'm using my junky computer. Gotta throw in Bind. Let's pull in Bind. What is Bind? Bind. It's mono green. It's a green instant. It's $4. And it says, counter target activated ability, draw a card. Okay. Who suggested this? Matten? You know, I never anticipate someone countering a triggered ability or countering an activated ability. I never anticipate it. I never expect it. I don't expect counter spells in general. This thing's cool. I'm glad that it says draw a card on it too. Because I probably wouldn't play it if it didn't say draw a card on it. But that draw a card is pretty valuable. The bummer about it though is that we can't draw a card until we have an activated ability to counter. So, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. It's definitely mean, and it's definitely unexpected. Dream Demon! Good to see you, Dream Demon. Alondra Sky Dreamer. Alondra Sky Dreamer. Go. Alondra Sky Dreamer. So this thing cares about drawing cards, too. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, that's great. We're all about drawing our second card each turn. Simone and Dina triggers on the second card, too. We created Drake with this thing. And Simone and Dina's second card triggers that we each opponent loses 2 life and we gain 2 life. This thing also says whenever you draw your 5th card each turn, Alondra the Skull Dreamer, and Drakes you control get +X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. You make your shit big when you draw a bunch of cards. It's great. It triggers so synergistically with Dina and Simone, because it triggers on the second card, just like our commander. Great suggestion. This one also went really good in our Esper Tokens live we did a few days ago. Very cool suggestion. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for supporting me on Twitch. I really appreciate it. I was kind of nervous, but we have actually... This is the best turnout on Twitch I've ever had. Equinox Paradox says Fate Stitcher. Fate Stitcher. Really, guys, thank you so much for making the jump. I really appreciate it. Fate Stitcher. Fate Stitcher. Uh-oh. Fate Stitcher? Fate Sticker. Fate Sticker. Fate Sticker? Fate Sticker and also Fate Stitcher are not coming up. Fate Stick. Fate Stick? Okay, Fate Stitcher, one word. Fate Stitcher is a 3-mana zombie wizard. It's a 1/2. And it says tap. You may tap or untap another target permanent. You can also unearth this for 1 blue mana and put it on the battlefield for a turn. It's a good time. It will let us untap Simone and Dina. We also saw a Rona Herald of Invasion earlier, and we can use that to untap that as well. This is very cool. We are leaning a little bit towards activated abilities. Kind of just because we got one on our commander, Simone and Dina. This thing's great. It can untap our commander, and whatever else we want to be untapping. Maybe if we have, like, I don't know, maybe a Chromatic Orrery that taps for a bunch of mana, we can also untap that Chromatic Orrery with this here Fate Stitcher. Or maybe we have a land that taps for 2 mana. Really, it's a good time. Anything you need to untap, the Fate Stitcher can untap it. Tatiova. Ben Thick Druid. And they do be thick with 2 C's. They know exactly what they're doing. Here's Tatiova. It's a 5-mana legendary Merfolk Druid 3/3 with a landfall trigger. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and you draw 1 card. It's excellent. We are this is exactly what we want to be doing. So whenever we play a land, we can probably draw our 2nd card each turn, get that Simone and Dina trigger, and when we draw a card like that, we're going to put another card in our hand. We can activate Simone and Dina, sacrificing something, potentially slamming a bunch of lands from our hands onto the battlefield, and then we'll get even more landfall triggers with Tatiova. Very cool synergy. These 2 things together will be very, very intense. It'll draw us a ton of cards, and it'll help us slam down a ton of lands. Excellent suggestion, Kai Brazil. Mine's Aglow. Void says Mine's Aglow. What is Mine's Aglow? Mine's Aglow is a 1-mana mono blue sorcery with Joined Forces, 80 cents. Starting with you, each player can pay any amount of mana. Each player draws X cards, where X is the total amount of mana paid this way. This is like a collective voyage, but card draw. I love it. It feels fair and balanced. It's a group hug card. And if we are kind of leaning into that Nekusar-like build a little bit, like we saw that Shoulder of the Apocalypse, we saw that Scrawling Crawler, I think we saw that Black Enchantment that deals damage when our opponents draw cards as well. This thing could be so silly. This thing could be absolutely coconuts. Even if we're the only ones paying like 3 mana into it, we help everybody draw 3 cards. That's still pretty good. We're still going to get our commander to trigger. We're possibly going to be putting lands into our hands to slam down with Simone and Dina. It's going to be a good time. I quite like this a lot. It's also a budget pick at 80 cents. I really like this one. Thank you for this one. Void, thank you for that one. That one is cool. Equinox Paradox, another friend of the channel, Equinox Paradox. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again, Equinox. Yeah, so when I think about untapping stuff, I don't think about Fate Stitcher. I think about Kyora's Follower, because it's half the mana, and it just says tap it, untap another target permanent. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. You can untap your rocks that tap for multiple mana. You can untap your lands that tap for multiple mana. You can untap your commanders if they got activated abilities. I love this thing. This is my favorite untapping card, period. Also, you can tell he's having an excellent hair day. I love this guy. Highly recommend. Alright, once again, I am Bigger Gayer Magic. I use green screen effects to make silly little Magic the Gathering short form content on TikTok and other platforms. And on lives, we do live deck building. Tonight, we are building Zimone and Dina, and it looks like we're building Ramos over on TikTok, but my computer is going to crap out over on my TikTok side if I click one more thing on it. So you guys got to look at Ramos. Sorry about it. If you guys want to join the main show with the cool green screen effects, please head on over to Twitch. And if you want to see any of the cards we talked about tonight, they're all in a dated Moxfield deck list on my Moxfield page, and y'all can get there via the link tree, which is just on TikTok. We couldn't get to work on Twitch. We're struggling. The reason we're moving the show from TikTok to Twitch is of the incoming TikTok ban. Sorry if you're hearing about the ban here. It's worth a Google. Here's Gitaxian Puppeteer. It's a 4-mana mono-black Phyrexian Warlock, and whenever you draw your second card each turn, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That's excellent. That's just our commander's triggered ability on this Phyrexian creature. And when Gitaxian Puppeteer dies, return another target creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. I love this thing. This thing's amazing. It's almost as good as our commander. In fact, it might be better. It synergizes so good. So it gives us that second card draw trigger to hurt our opponents, which is exactly what Zimone and Dina do. And it wants to die. And our commanders, Zimone and Dina, have a sack outlet on their activated ability. This thing, though, if our commander dies, our commander is only 3 mana. If our commander dies and we find another way to kill this thing, or if we block with it, we can recur our commander from the graveyard with this thing's death trigger. This thing is really synergistic. Who put this in here? Dream Demon! Excellent suggestion, Dream Demon. You're a treat. I appreciate you. Thank you. This thing is rad. Also, this thing's only $2.50. And yeah, it's a vibe. It was in the Brothers War. The art is rad and spooky. This one's a win for me. Psychic Corrosion. Psychic Corrosion. Psychic Corrosion. Damn it. Psychic Corrosion. P-S-Y. Psychic Corrosion. Okay, this is the milling card. It's the milling enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. You know what? We haven't really seen, outside of drawing cards and dealing damage with Zimone and Dina's trigger, we haven't seen a lot of win cons. We haven't seen any big stompy combat boys. We ain't seen no infinites, probably because I poo-poo infinites. But this thing could be a win con. A lot of our deck is built around drawing cards, getting Zimone and Dina's triggers, drawing cards on our opponent's turn, again to get Zimone and Dina's trigger. This thing's a vibe. It triggers whenever we draw a card, and that's when all our other meaningful pieces trigger too. It's a mill strategy. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, to be honest with you. I had no idea that this uncommon from 2019 is nearly $8. I probably have like 3 of these hanging out in a binder doing nothing. Did you guys know this thing is $8? This thing is $8 for a 2019 uncommon. Strange. Very strange. Maybe it's played in like a multi-card format or something. Alright, Equinox Paradox is a thematic compass. I like the thematic compass, and the thing that makes the thematic compass really synergistic in a Zimone and Dina deck is because its activated ability to pay 3, search your library for a land, slap it in your hand, is great. Because with Zimone and Dina, we can sacrifice something, we're gonna draw a card, and we can slam a land from our hand onto the battlefield. This thing's great. If we get into early game thematic compass, because we can cast it on curve before we have our commander, and then on our turn 4, once we have the thematic compass, and also Zimone and Dina, we could activate the thematic compass, and maybe also the commander, to plop down 2 lands, and then be at 6 lands during our turn 5 start. It's very cool. It feels like a tempo win for me. And because Simone and Dina care about hitting 8 lands, this thing also cares about hitting a certain threshold of lands. And this one is 7. When you have 7 lands, it flips into a Maze of Ith. I don't know if y'all know what Maze of Ith is, but it can lock out a commander game if someone's playing a Voltron deck. This thing says, untap target attacking creature an opponent controls and remove it from combat. Womp womp. It's great. It's excellent. You can just keep removing the Voltron commander from attacking you. You can use it to save your opponents, and you can use it to, not argue, you can use it to demand favors from them. It's fun. It's a lot of fun in Commander. And at 2 mana, as long as you can get to that 3 mana so you can activate its ability, you can find some lands, put them in your hand, and then you can just make sure that you have a game into the late game. I like this card. It came out in the original Ixalan set, I want to say about 7 years ago. It's a vibe. I like this one. It's only $3. Roxel, what was the card we looked at in the Ramos deck that allows the triggered effects to happen twice? Alright, so we can't pull it up right now. But the name of that card, I'm going to put it in the chat for you, Roxel. It's called Annie Joins Up. It's a Naya card. It's in red, white, and green. And it's awesome. Thank you so much for remembering a card we talked about. It's called Annie Joins Up. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to whatever you want it to, and then it doubles the triggered abilities of your legendary creatures. It's insane. But you know what else is insane? Min Wily Duelist. It's a 3-mana mono-black legendary gnome wizard from the D&D expansion, and it's a 1/3. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you make a 1/1 blue illusion creature token, with it gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you got. Whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. I like this thing. I like this thing a lot. Because our commander revolves around that second card draw trigger to deal a little bit of damage, gain us a little bit of life, anything that says whenever you draw your second card each turn is awesome in a Simone and Dina deck, because that's the whole thing. We want to get that second card draw trigger on everybody's turn, not just our turn. So any way that we can draw cards on other person's turns, we can get the triggers on our commander and also anything that else says that second card. It's a good time. And it makes little illusions. And it really rewards you for really piling up these illusions, because they buff themselves for the amount of illusions you got. And you might even be able to cheat out some free stuff if you can get like 3 or 4 illusions out. I feel like this is a vibe. It's also $9. It's $9. And man, this feels a little overpriced for me. I kind of wish it was like $1. But whatever. Kept Evergreen says Shared Fate. Shared Fate. Uh-oh. 50 cent, 5 mana, mono blue enchantment. If a player would draw a card, that player removes the top card of their opponent's library from the game. Face down. Each player may look at and play cards he or she removed from the game with Shared Fate as though they were in his or her hand. So, this thing is spicy. It's definitely on theme, but I don't like it because it's a replacement effect. We will never be able to draw our second card because this thing replaces the card draw effect. So it feels like a bit of a flavor fail and also a synergy fail for me for that reason. But if your goal is to drive your opponents absolutely coconuts, maddeningly insane, play this thing. This thing will definitely get a reaction out of them if that's your goal. It's 50 cents, which is a vibe. We love a budget card here on the show. It's not quite for me. I feel like it might slow down a game because you're going to start playing your opponent's decks, and everything you've probably done before you started playing your opponent's decks probably don't synergize very good. Maybe. It's strange. It's strange. It's strange, and I feel like it would bother me. Ominous Seas. Void says Ominous Seas. Ominous Seas. Bam. Oh, right. Ominous Seas. Uh-oh. TikTok. All right. All right, here's Ominous Seas. It's a 2-mana mono blue enchantment. It's $3. And it says whenever you draw a card, put a foreshadow counter on Ominous Seas. That's great. All we want to be doing in this deck is drawing cards. Remove 8 foreshadow counters from Ominous Seas. Create an 8/8 octopus, Kraken creature token. That's amazing. We can also cycle the card to get a draw trigger. It's rad. It's doing all we want to do in this deck because we want to be drawing as many cards as possible. We want to be doing it on our opponent's turns. And that's great. This thing wants to draw triggers. It wants to get up to 8 counters so that we can remove them, make ourselves a Kraken. It's a good time. Would recommend. It's very cool. And it synergizes with our draw triggers. How is that drain going for a drain? I'm sorry, TikTok. I am struggling. My computer is not letting me load the new commander. Our new commander is Zimone and Dina. Oh my god. Did we just lose Please don't crash. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I talk shit about you, shitty computer. You can do it. Okay, we're gonna stop touching that. TikTok viewers, if you want to come check out the fancy green screen effects and talk about live deck building, please head on over to Twitch. Y'all can get there via my link tree. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me anyway, even though you probably can't read the cards. But thank you. Yeah. That's Ominous Seas. I don't know why I haven't recommended this. Howling Mine. Howling Mine. Howling Mine. Howling Mine. Howling Mine. Howling Mine is a staple of the Nekusar strategy. It's 5 mana. It's $5. It's 2 mana. It's a colorless artifact. And it says at the beginning of each player's draw step, if this thing is tapped, if this thing is untapped, that player draws an additional card. It's great. It's going to help us get that second card draw trigger with Dina. It is going to help our opponents. And if we're playing things like Shoulder of the Apocalypse, or Scrolling Crawler, or Nekusar-like effects, them drawing cards is going to hurt them too. So there's that. I like it. It's fair. It's a group hug card. I like seeing this thing in a Nekusar deck. It's fair. It's balanced. I like it. It also got a reprint in the Brothers War. Teferi's Puzzle Box. Teferi's Puzzle Box. Teferi's Puzzle Box. Uh-oh. Teferi's... Uh-oh. Why can I never spell Teferi? Why do I keep putting A's in Teferi's? Teferi's Puzzle Box is a $14 4-mana colorless artifact. It's got a triggered ability. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the cards in their hand on the bottom of their library in a random order, draws that many cards. This thing's amazing. If we are doing a Nekusar strategy where we want our opponents to be drawing cards, because when they draw cards, they're going to be taking damage with things like Shoulder or a Scrolling Crawler, this thing's amazing. It's also amazing for us because Zimone and Dina want to get that second card draw trigger every single turn. It also doesn't fill our graveyard, which is great in case we're afraid of milling ourselves out or drawing ourselves out. It's a vibe. We vibe. Evan, Obsidian Ronin, thank you so much, Evan, for making the jump from TikTok. I appreciate it. Evan, it's good to see. Evan, another friend of the channel. You've been building with us for a few months. Evan, thank you so much for heading on over. Detective of the Month. Detective of the Month. Detective of the Month. Uh-oh. Detective of the Month. Detective of the Month. 50 cents. Printed in the Murders at Karlov Manor set. It's a human detective 2/1 for 3 mana with the Send. As long as you have the Cities of Blessing, the Cities of Blessing is 10 permanents. Detectives you control can't be blocked. And whenever you draw your second card each turn, you create a 2/2 blue detective creature token. This thing's great. So I don't really care about the not blocking thing. That part doesn't really excite me so much. But that whenever you draw your second card, you make a 2/2, that's exciting to me. That's great. As we've been talking about with Zimone and Dina, we want to be getting that second piece of card draw every turn, especially our opponent's turns. This thing can trigger our opponent's turns too. It's amazing. It makes 2/2s. Zimone and Dina's deal 2 damage to our opponents. Great. I love it. I love that it has that second card draw trigger. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Cosmos... Wait. Kept Evergreen says, Crumbling Sanctuary. Crumbling Sanctuary. Crumbling Sanctuary is a 5-mana, colorless, $1.50 artifact, and it says for each 1 damage that would be dealt to a player, that player removes the top card of his or her library from the game instead. You know, we saw that blue $8 uncommon from 2019 that milled players. This thing exiles their library. It could be a vibe. Could be a vibe. Wait, can it hurt us? Okay, this can hurt us. So it feels fair and belongs to me because we can also exile our own library with this thing. If someone just pings us a bunch, they can get rid of our library. How silly is that? Feels fair. Cosmos Elixir. Cosmos Elixir. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on Twitch. This is by far the most successful Twitch stream I've had on Twitch yet. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and suggest some cards. Cosmos Elixir is a 4-mana, colorless, $3 artifact, and it says at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total, otherwise you gain 2 life. Very cool. So it's an end step trigger. We draw a card if we gain enough life, and we might be drawing cards with it, because Simone and Dina can gain us 2 life when we draw our second card. It hurts our opponents for 2, but it also gains us a little bit of life, which can be significant. This thing, and if we're below that life total, this thing is just a bit of life gain for us on an end step trigger. We vibe. It hangs out. It's probably not going to draw a lot of removal. Why not? Kami of the Crescent Moon. Kami of the Crescent Moon. Is this the one with the butt crack? This is the butt crack Kami. This is butt crack Kami. He's legendary. He's 2 blue mana. We're gonna censor him for YouTube. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. It's great. You often see this thing in a Nekusar deck where we can deal damage to our opponents when they draw cards. There we go. Let's get that butt crack out of there. Very cool suggestion, though. Illusionist Bracers. Illusionist. I love Illusionist Bracers. My Illusionist Bracers are in my Rona Herald of Invasion deck. Why can I not spell Illusionist? Illusionist. Bracers. Illusionist Bracers. It's $5. This card used to be like $15 like a year or 2 ago. I'm glad it saw some reprints in the Ravnica Remastered set. It says whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, you get to copy that ability and you get to pick new targets for it. This is great. Our commanders, Simone and Dina, have an activated ability. Activated abilities have semicolons. Simone and Dina's activated ability is sacrifice another creature, draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you control 8 or more lands, repeat the process. This thing's great. So we don't have to sacrifice multiple creatures for this thing because that is part of the cost of activating Simone and Dina. We don't have to do the cost. We're just getting the juicy parts of the Illusionist Bracers off the activated ability. I love Illusionist Bracers. Highly recommend. Dream Demon says On the Trail. On the Trail is a green 2-mana enchantment from the Murders at Karlov Manor set. It's $3, and it says whenever you draw your second card each turn, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Y'all, we are going to ramp so hard. It's going to be so silly. We're going to draw so many... This thing's amazing. I love that it has the second card draw trigger. That's the trigger we really care about, and that's the trigger we want on our stuff for our Simone and Dina deck. Hell yeah, very cool. I love it. Oh, right. Lim Duel's Vault. Lim Duel's Vault. Lim Duel's Vault is a 2-mana Dimir instant. Look at the top 5 cards of your library as many times as you want. You may pay 1 life and put those cards on the bottom of your library in any order, and look at the top 5 cards. Then shuffle, put the last cards you looked as way on the top in any order. So great, you can keep paying life, and you can set up the perfect hand for yourself, kind of. Or you can keep sifting through your deck and paying life, and setting up the top for a very spicy play. I don't like this card, and I'm going to tell you why. This card takes minutes to resolve. It takes a long time. It takes a big chunk of the communal time of the Commander game to resolve this effect. Other than that, it's a great card. The only thing I don't like about it is it encourages the player casting it to take their time, and it takes minutes to resolve this thing. And that's the only thing I have bad to say about it. No, we didn't do Growth Spiral. Thank you, Evan, for Growth Spiral. Growth Spiral is a rad little 2-drop Simic instant. And it says, draw a card, slam a land from your hand onto the battlefield. It's rad. It's 2 mana. It's an instant. It fits really good into the curve of Zimone and Dina, because Zimone and Dina, on their activated ability, can slam lands onto the great battlefield from our hand. This thing will draw us a card and also slam a land onto the battlefield. It does a similar thing. And 2 mana is going to be really easy to fit into the mana curve of this deck, because our commander can slam lands onto the battlefield from our hand. We're going to have an extra 2 mana at some point, and this is a great thing to do with an extra 2 mana. The fucking Font of Mythos. Yeah, so we can talk about Rhystic Study. Font of Mythos. Rhystic Study is like the quintessential blue commander card. It's a 3 mana mono blue enchantment. It says whenever an opponent casts a spell, they can pay 1 mana, and if they don't pay 1 mana, we draw a card. Rhystic Study has helped win so many commander games. It creates such an exponential card draw advantage for us. And it's great in Zimone and Dina because it can give us those card draw triggers on our opponent's turns, giving us Zimone and Dina's second card draw trigger, and also the second card draw trigger of whatever else we have on the battlefield, which is a lot. We saw a lot of very cool second card draw trigger cards. We saw some artifacts. We saw that detective that makes 2/2s. That one's pretty exciting. We also saw that mono blue illusion gnome thing that makes illusions that pump each other up for the amount of illusions we got. Here's the Font of Mythos. It's a 4 mana, $20 colorless artifact, and it says at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws 2 additional cards. 10 out of 10. It's immediately going to turn on Zimone and Dina's second draw trigger for us on our turn. And if we are leaning into a Nekusar strategy with like the Soldier of the Apocalypse and the Scrawling Crawler, and I think the Waste Not Want Not, or that other black thing we saw that punishes people for drawing cards. Hell yeah, very cool. Goes great in a Nekusar build. We should build a Nekusar on live sometime. I don't think we have yet. Ramos would be colorless, but if he's running as your commander, he's all 5 colors because Ramos has all the pips in his tech box. AC Tyrant of the Gyre Strait. Tyrant of the Gyre Strait. This thing's from, what are you from? You're from Innistrad. You're from one of the newer Innistrad sets. This is a 6 mana legendary Serpent 5/5. And you may play an additional land on each of your turns. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, you may draw a card. It's great. It's got card draw triggers stapled onto it. Card draw triggers are going to make Zimone and Dina get their little trigger off. And it's going to be a good time. It synergizes great with our commander. It gives us that card draw trigger. We can also activate Zimone and Dina. Sacrifice another creature, draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. We could activate Zimone and Dina on our opponent's turns. Yeah, and then we could get the landfall trigger off this thing. Very cool. Very cool. Alright. Teferi's Ageless Insight. Teferi's Ageless Insight. It's expensive. Oh my god, no way. This thing is $3. Guys, this used to be a $40 card. This thing used to be like $40. You should buy one of these. They're excellent. It used to be like $40 and now it's $3. I'm so happy. Alright, this thing says if you would draw a card except the first card you would draw on each of your turns, you draw 2 cards. It doubles your card draw output. It's great. Highly recommend. It also used to be $40. Did I mention that? Zur's Weirding. Zur's Weirding. Zur's Weirding. Zur's Weirding's upsetting. I remember when I first started doing live deck building, we built a Send Triplets, try to be the worst possible version of yourself, and Zur's Weirding kept getting suggested.
Zer's Weirding is a 4-mana colorless blue, 4-mana mono blue enchantment. Players play with their hands revealed, and if a player would draw a card, he or she reveals it instead. Then any other player may pay 2 life, and if the player does, put that card into its owner's graveyard. Otherwise, that player draws the card. So if you decide that your opponents draw some spice, and you don't want them to have spice, you pay a little bit of life, and they don't get to play their thing. Womp womp, so sad. You're probably going to lose if this is played against you. And the opponent has a bunch of life. It's especially synergistic in our Simone and Dina deck, because Simone and Dina gains life in increments of 2. Alright, guys. That is going to be it from me tonight. Once again, I am Bigger, Gayer Magic. I use green screen effects to make MTG content across all platforms. I primarily make short-form videos, but on lives, we do community deck building. We built Simone and Dina tonight. It's a Soul Tie deck built around drawing a second card each turn. And if you want to see any of the suggestions that we saw tonight, please head to the link tree and check out my Moxfield profile with the dated deck list. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight. I hope you all have a good one. Take care, and I hope you all draw the appropriate amount of lands during your next game.